The following program is from NET, the National Educational Television Network.
My name is R.C. Davis. I was born in Cogdell, Georgia. The South and the Southern way of life has always been an enigma, a kind of sphinx on the American land, one writer said. White people speak of their way of life with pride and affection. But one white man from Maryland, H.L. Mencken, wrote, fundamentalism, Ku Kluxery, revivals, lynchings, hogwalla politics, these are the things that always occur to a Northerner when he thinks of the South. What is the Southern way of life? Is it based on the myth or the reality of the past? Did it ebb its life away at Shiloh and Gettysburg? Or does it still live for the 43 million whites and 11 million Negroes who live there today? I love the South, a man said in 1958. I don't choose to live anywhere else. There's land there where a man can raise cattle. That's what I'm going to do someday. There are lakes where man can sink a hook and fight the bass. There's room there where my children can play and grow and get to be good citizens. Medgar Evers, a Negro, said that. Progress in the South has always been measured by the darky and by cotton. First there was tobacco, rice, and indigo to be worked. But by the end of the 18th century, there was a severe depression. Slavery seemed doomed. Then, in 1793, the invention of the cotton gin. Cotton could now be mass-produced, and an economic boom was in the making. Black hands and black backs were needed again to support a land. Who else could work so hard, so long, and so cheaply? White men had established a moral system to meet their needs. At the heart of it was a belief in the Negro's natural inferiority. Slavery was declared not only an economic, but a social good. South Carolina's governor said, in all social systems, there must be a class to do the menial duties, to perform the drudgery of life. Such a class you must have, or you would not have that other class, which leads progress, civilization, and refinement. And the North destroyed all this, all the gentility and pride and honor that white Southerners called a way of life. More than 600,000 died in the war. 250,000 Southerners. Black men also fought and died. Of 186,000 Negroes who enlisted in the Union Army, 38,000 died. The South lay devastated. Hell has laid her egg, said a Georgian visiting Atlanta. Right here it hatched. Galveston, a reporter said, was a city of dogs and desolation, utterly God-forsaken. 4 million Negroes were free under the Federal Reconstruction Acts for the first time to own their own homes, free to go to school, free to vote and hold public office. The first mixed jury in the South was impaneled for the trial of Confederate President Jefferson Davis. Half of the jurors were Negroes. Before 1901, 22 Negroes were elected to Congress. There were 2 Negro senators from Mississippi. 33-year-old Blanche K. Bruce was one. John Mercer Langston, a Negro abolitionist, who became a representative from Virginia. B.S. Pinchback, acting governor of Louisiana. There was graft and corruption. But during this time, Negroes were influential in passing bills for free public schools, abolished property qualifications for voting, and ended use of the whipping post and branding iron. Today, these laws still exist for everyone but the Negro.
That no amalgamation of races should be allowed. In other words, they did not permit intermarriage. It was made death to maim or kill a horse or a cow or a slave.
By 1885, separate schools were the new order. At white and Negro schools, children, using the same textbook, learned the traditions of the past and absorbed the values of the present. In their History of Mississippi textbook, they read of life on a Mississippi plantation. The master and the mistress taught the Negroes truthfulness and honesty as they taught their own children, by not tempting them and by trusting them. With Negro slaves, it seemed impossible for one of them to do a thing without the assistance of one or two others. Of course, some kind of occupation had to be devised to keep them employed a part of the time, but it was very laborious to find easy work for a large body of lazy and inefficient people. By the end of the century, segregation was complete. The New South rose out of the ashes of the old, and the good nigger was the one who once again knew his place. In the Negro Quarter, large families live in 2 and 3 rooms. As in most Southern communities, Negro women are the main support of the family, working as maids, washwomen, and nurses. 73% of Oxford's Negroes receive some form of welfare relief. A tremendous problem that has always haunted the South: jobs for Negroes. Negroes who were often stronger, more capable for the work required. A laborless, landless, and homeless class, Lincoln called them, caught in a hazy realm between bondage and freedom. But in 1866, Union General Hatch said, "At issue in the South is not what shall be done with the Negro, but what shall be done with the whites." They were the victims of poverty and poor land, of malaria and hookworm, about whom the Negroes used to sing, "You can't make a living on sandy land. I'd rather be a nigger than a poor white man." Reverend W.N. Redmond, as most Southern Negroes, has been an eyewitness to the vigilante system of Negro control. At 14, he remembers the punishment of a Negro father and son who had killed a white man's dog.
They took him and put him in jail, and they beat him. And then they got together on a Saturday, and they tied him with barbed wire, hand and feet. They put barbed wire around the neck and put the father on one side of the bumper and the Negro and the son on the other side of the bumper. They drug them all over the town. And after that, they were drugged to the neighborhood, the Negro neighborhood. They were told that this is the way that we're going to keep the Negro in this place. And they took gas, gasoline, and they poured it on them, and they burned them up.
Any laws, man-made laws, or made by Congress or any other lawmaking body, he has all the freedom that he wants. The Negro is not deprived of any freedom here in Mississippi.
Jim Crow, it was called. Beginning in 1870, signs went up all over the South separating the races and taking away the Negroes' newly won rights. Negroes and whites were separated on trains and buses. Negroes were barred from white hotels, restaurants, barbershops, and theaters. For 11 million Negroes in the South, there is also a Southern way of life. But rarely have they been asked for their interpretation.
Well, the white man fears this, that if the Negro get equal education, then he will be out of his reach to do the job that he heretofore have done for him, and he figured that he was going to have to pay the Negro equal salary that he would have to pay the other boy. which actually is not the skin of the Negro that the white man dreads. It's the Negro is going to demand the dollar that the white man demands.
The Southern way of life for the Negro woman means that she is addressed all the time by her first name, or she's called auntie, or she's called girl by the other race. And the Southern way of life often means that our children wear some of the things that have been given by others. Now, a lot of times these are good things, and they are highly appreciated. And the Southern way of life means that you can purchase food from a side entrance or a back entrance, or you can get someone to fix something for you to carry out. The Southern way of life means that you are to say yes ma'am and yes sir and no ma'am and no sir. Sometimes that's expected even down to the teenagers.
White folks were so good to me till when I got sick and disabled to work, to just come in and bring me something to eat, clothes, and everything. Fed me, clothed me, and I had a house full of children, and they fed my children. Yes, sir, I've been working all of my life, and the white folks raised me. Mister, I tell you the truth, I don't know what in the world I'd do without white folks. Now, that's the truth. And misters, I'm just a white folks nigger. I'm a nigger, and all of my children's a nigger. And all this community in here of Mississippi recognize, appreciate it, and work for the white folks.